Rain had begun to fall in slow, heavy drops, tapping softly against the roofs of the small town. The streets were nearly empty, washed in the gray gloom of late afternoon. People hurried along under umbrellas, eager to reach their warm homes. But one man, a stranger in town, walked slowly, his coat pulled tight around him, ignoring the chill. His name was Armin, and he was not looking for trouble. He was only walking home. As he turned a corner, he noticed something unusual near the edge of the street. A figure crouched by the old brick wall, barely moving. The street lamp flickered, casting shadows across the wet cobblestones. At first, Armin thought it was a homeless person seeking shelter from the rain, but something about the figure made him stop. The closer he walked, the more he realized that it was a woman, and she was hurt. Blood stained her sleeve and dripped slowly onto the wet stones. Her hair clung to her pale face, damp and tangled. Her eyes were half closed, and her lips trembled as if she were in pain. Armin's heart jumped. He had never been in a situation like this before. He quickly checked around. There was no one else. No help nearby. No sign of anyone who could have hurt her. It seemed he was the only one who could do something. Are you okay?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. She did not answer. Only a faint moan escaped her lips. Armin glanced around again, the rain soaking him through. He knew he had no choice. Slowly, carefully, he knelt beside her. His hands trembled slightly as he examined the wound on her arm. It looked deep, but not life-threatening, he hoped. He tore a strip from his coat and pressed it gently against the injury. She flinched but did not move away. "You'll be fine. I'll help you," he whispered, though he barely knew why he felt a connection to this stranger. As he worked, carefully tying the makeshift bandage, he noticed her eyes. They were strange, piercing in a way he could not describe. They seemed to see more than him, as if she knew things he had never told anyone. He shivered despite the rain. Finally, he finished. He leaned back slightly, catching his breath. "There. That should stop the bleeding." The woman stirred. Her eyes opened wider now, meeting his. She stared at him for a long moment, and then she whispered something that made his blood run cold. "You have no idea who I really am." Her voice was soft but firm, almost like a warning. Armin froze. He didn't know how to respond. The words sounded strange, almost impossible, yet there was no hint of joking in her tone. Her gaze held a kind of fire that made him step back instinctively. Who are you?" he asked. She did not answer, only shifted slightly and pressed her hand to the bandage. Her fingers were cold against his. Armin noticed she trembled, not just from the rain, but from fear, or something else. Something he could not yet understand. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed from the darkened alley behind him. Armin's heart skipped. He stood quickly, shielding the woman with his body. "Stay back," he shouted, though his voice shook. The footsteps slowed. A shadow moved in the rain. Armin squinted but could not make out who or what it was. When the figure finally emerged into the dim light, he realized it was a man in a dark coat, his face hidden under a hood. He didn't speak. He just watched, silent and still. Armin's mind raced. Who was this person? Why were they here? And why was the woman injured in the first place? Before he could react, the woman grabbed his arm. "We need to go now," she whispered, her voice urgent this time. Her eyes were wide, filled with fear, but also a strange determination. Armin hesitated. He had no idea where they could go. The streets were empty, the rain blurring everything. "Where?" he asked. "Anywhere, just away from here." "He will come back," she said, nodding toward the shadowy figure. Without another word, she pulled him toward a narrow alley. The rain fell harder, drumming in their ears. The figure from before didn't move immediately, but after a moment, he stepped forward, following them at a distance. Armin's mind raced. He had never been in a chase before. But instinct told him one thing: this woman was in danger. And somehow he had to protect her. They ran through winding streets and alleys, trying to keep out of sight. The woman moved swiftly despite her injury, her steps light and almost silent. Armin struggled to keep up, his lungs burning, but he dared not slow down. Finally, they reached an abandoned building at the edge of town. The door hung loosely on its hinges, the walls covered in peeling paint. She pushed him inside. "Hide," she whispered. Armin stepped in, glancing around. The room was dark, empty except for the smell of damp and dust. He could hear the rain outside, pounding the roof, mixing with the sound of distant footsteps. The woman followed him in, closing the door quietly behind her. She leaned against the wall, panting. Her injury was bleeding again, and Armin rushed to help, tearing another strip of his coat to reinforce the bandage. What are you running from?" he asked, his voice low, careful. Her eyes met his, filled with something he could not name. "If I tell you, you'll be in danger too," she said softly. Armin shook his head. "I don't care. I want to help. I don't know who you are, but I can't just leave you like this." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded slightly. "Fine, but promise me you won't speak of this to anyone. Not a single word." "I promise," he said immediately. For a moment, they were silent. Only the sound of the rain and their breathing filled the room. Then she finally spoke again, her voice barely more than a whisper. "My name is not important. What is important is that they do not find me. Ever." Armin felt a chill run down his spine. The seriousness in her voice was undeniable. Whoever was after her, it was not a trivial matter. This was life and death. Outside, the footsteps paused. He could hear the faint scrape of shoes against wet stone. The figure was still searching. Armin tightened his grip on the bandage, glancing at the woman. She seemed calm now, her breathing steady, but her eyes were sharp, alert, watching every shadow and sound. "Who are they?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "Some things you are not ready to know. But you're safe for now. And you must trust me." Armin nodded, though a part of him felt uneasy. Trust? With someone he had just met, who was clearly hiding a dangerous secret. But he could not turn away. Something about her made him want to protect her, no matter the risk. Hours passed, the rain finally easing into a light drizzle. They stayed in the abandoned building, keeping low, listening for any sign of pursuit. Armin could feel the weight of the night pressing down on them, thick with tension and unanswered questions. The woman finally sat down against the wall, pressing a hand to her head as if trying to calm herself. "You don't understand," she said softly. "There is a world hidden from ordinary people. I belong to it. And now, somehow, you're a part of it too." Armin stared at her, unsure what to say. His life had been ordinary, predictable, and suddenly, it was anything but. The room was silent except for the sound of the dripping rain. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the events unfolding in that small, abandoned building. But inside, two lives had collided in a way that would change everything. And Armin had no idea what lay ahead. For the first time in his life, he felt a mix of fear and curiosity he had never known before. Who was this woman? What was she running from? And what did it mean for him? The answers were coming, but not yet. Tonight, he would only wait and watch and try to understand. And somewhere outside in the shadows, someone or something was waiting, watching, patient. The unexpected turning point had arrived. And there was no going back. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening under the pale light of the moon. The abandoned building smelled of damp and old wood. Armin sat on the cold floor, still trying to process everything that had happened. His heart raced as he glanced at the woman. She sat across from him, her back pressed against the wall. Her eyes were sharp, almost predatory, scanning every corner of the room. Something about her made him uneasy, though he could not say why. There was a weight in her gaze, as if she carried more than just the memory of her injury. "I need to know," Armin said quietly, his voice breaking the silence. "Who are you? Why are they after you?" She looked at him, and for a moment, her eyes softened. Then the sharpness returned. "Some questions," she said slowly, "cannot be answered lightly. There are things in this world that ordinary people are not meant to see. And if they are revealed, it can destroy more than just you." Armin frowned, confusion twisting his stomach. But I'm already in this. I saw you being chased. I helped you. I want to understand. She studied him for a long moment, then finally spoke. You may think you want to understand, but what you are about to learn will change how you see everything. Are you ready for that? He hesitated. His instinct screamed both yes and no. But he nodded. I have to know. Her lips curved in a faint, almost sad smile. Very well. But you must promise something first. Anything, Armin said immediately. Promise me you will not speak a word of this to anyone. Not a friend, not family, not the authorities. One mistake, and they will find us, and it will not end well. Armin swallowed hard. I promise. She nodded, seeming to relax slightly. Good. My name is Alara, and I am not from here. Not in the way you understand it. Armin blinked. Not from here? You mean another country? No, she said sharply. Not a country. Another place. Another world hidden from your kind. A place filled with people who wield power beyond your imagination. And I am one of them. Armin's mouth went dry. Power? What do you mean? Alara leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. I am part of something old. Something dangerous. A world that watches yours from the shadows. And now something has gone wrong. They want me gone because I know too much. He stared at her, trying to understand. It sounded like a story from a book, not real life. But the seriousness in her eyes told him she was not lying. And these they, who are they? He asked. Alara's eyes darkened. Hunters. People trained to track, to manipulate, to destroy. They can be anyone, anywhere. And once they choose a target, they will not stop. A shiver ran down Armin's spine. He felt trapped between disbelief and fear. And I'm safe with you? For now, Alara said. But being near me makes you part of this. You cannot go back to your ordinary life. Not after tonight. Armin's mind raced. His life had been simple, predictable. Work, home, repeat. But now everything had shifted. And he realized he could not just walk away. Something about Alara drew him in. Something dangerous and exciting and terrifying all at once. The sound of a soft knock made them both freeze. Armin glanced toward the door. Alara's hand moved to his arm, her touch quick and urgent. They're close, she whispered. They've found the building. We have little time. Armin's heart pounded. What do we do? Alara's eyes scanned the room. We leave. Now. Follow me, and do exactly as I say. She led him through a hidden door behind a crumbling bookshelf. Armin stumbled, but she caught his arm, steadying him. The door opened to a narrow passage, barely wide enough for one person at a time. The air was damp, smelling of earth and old stone. They moved quickly, silently. Outside, the sounds of pursuit echoed faintly, but the passage kept them hidden. Armin's mind raced with questions, but he dared not speak. Every moment counted. After what felt like an eternity, they emerged into a small courtyard. Moonlight reflected off the wet ground, and Armin could see the outline of the city walls in the distance. Alara turned to him, her expression serious. You must understand, she said. You are in danger simply by being with me. They will not hesitate to hurt anyone who helps me. I understand, Armin said, though a part of him did not. Fear gnawed at his chest, but there was also a strange thrill. He felt alive in a way he had never felt before. Alara nodded. Good. Then we move. They ran across the courtyard, shadows blending with the darkness. Armin noticed that Alara seemed to know exactly where to go, as if every street, every alley, was mapped in her mind. He struggled to keep up, but she slowed her pace slightly, glancing back to ensure he was still with her. Suddenly, a figure stepped into their path. A man, tall, with a hood covering his face. His presence made Armin freeze, but Alara grabbed his hand and pulled him to the side. You will not catch me, she whispered fiercely, her eyes burning. Before Armin could react, she moved with incredible speed, dodging the man and disappearing into the shadows. He followed, barely keeping up, his breath coming in gasps. The man shouted something, but the rain muffled his voice. Armin realized then how dangerous this situation truly was. Whoever Alara was running from, they were skilled, patient, and relentless. They ducked into another alley, and Armin finally allowed himself to catch his breath. Alara leaned against the wall, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Her injury was still fresh, and he could see blood soaking through the bandage. Why are they after you?" he asked quietly. Alara's eyes softened slightly. "Because I know something I should not. Something that could change the balance between our world and yours. And now, they want to make sure I never reveal it." Armin felt a chill. "Change the balance? What does that mean?" "It means," she said, her voice low, "that there are secrets in your world that you cannot even imagine. Powerful people, hidden forces, things that control governments, economies, even wars. And I know them. I have seen them. I have fought them." Armin swallowed hard. Everything he had believed about his safe, ordinary life was crumbling. He felt a mixture of fear and excitement. He did not understand most of what she said, but he knew one thing for sure. He could never go back to his old life. Alara took his hand. "Come. We cannot stay here. They're close. We must move before it's too late." They ran through empty streets, past closed shops and shuttered windows. Armin tried to memorize their path, but it was impossible. He had never been in these parts of the city. Every corner seemed unfamiliar, every shadow a potential threat. Finally, they reached an old warehouse at the edge of the city. Alara pushed open the rusted door and gestured for him to follow. Inside, the space was large and empty, filled with crates and old machinery. "Hide," she whispered, and Armin ducked behind a stack of crates. Alara stood in the center of the room, her eyes scanning the entrance. "They will not find us here, not yet," she said, though her voice was tense. Armin crouched, trying to catch his breath. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. "You could have left me behind." Alara turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Because you helped me first. That is all that matters. And because I trust you in a way I do not trust anyone else." Her words struck him deeply. Trust? In a world he barely understood, trust felt fragile, almost impossible. Yet he believed her. Somehow, he had no choice but to believe her. Hours passed in silence. Armin and Alara stayed hidden, listening for any sign of pursuit. The warehouse was cold, dark, and quiet, but outside, the city slept uneasily. Finally, Alara spoke. "I need to tell you more. You deserve to know, at least part of the truth. But it will not be easy to hear." Armin nodded. "I am ready." She took a deep breath. "Very well. You must understand this, my life. The danger, the people hunting me, it is all tied to something much larger than you or me. And once you know, you cannot ignore it. You cannot turn back." Armin felt a lump in his throat. He had already crossed that line. There was no going back. Alara's eyes met his, sharp and intense. "Are you ready to see the world behind the world?" Armin nodded again, though fear churned in his stomach. "I am ready." She smiled faintly, almost sadly. "Then listen carefully, for what I tell you now will change everything." Outside, the city was quiet, but the shadows were alive. And somewhere in those shadows, the hunters waited. Patient, relentless. Inside the warehouse, Armin and Alara began the story of a world hidden in plain sight. And nothing would ever be the same again. The city slept under a thin veil of mist, its streets empty, yet alive with unseen movement. Armin followed Alara through the maze of alleys, his coat wet from the lingering rain, his heart hammering with every step. Every shadow seemed to twist, every corner hid a secret. He realized he no longer recognized the city. Every familiar street now seemed strange, dangerous. Alara moved with a grace that made her seem almost unreal. Her injuries slowed her slightly, but she didn't falter. She stopped only when she sensed danger or needed to check their path. Armin struggled to keep up, but he dared not complain. Each step felt like stepping deeper into a world he wasn't meant to see. "Why are they chasing you?" Armin asked, trying to catch his breath. "Who are they really?" Alara glanced at him briefly, her eyes sharp and wary. "It doesn't matter who they are. What matters is what they want, and right now that is me." Armin's stomach churned. The words were simple, but the weight behind them was enormous. Someone, or something, was hunting her, relentless and patient. And by helping her, he had invited himself into the same danger. They turned a corner, and Armin froze. A figure stood at the end of a street, silhouetted by a flickering street lamp. The figure didn't move at first, only watched, calm and silent. Armin's mind screamed at him to run, but Alara's hand grabbed his, pulling him into the shadow of a doorway. "Stay quiet," she whispered. The figure took a step forward, then another, scanning the street with an unnatural precision. Armin noticed how carefully it moved, almost gliding across the wet cobblestones. He realized, with growing fear, that this was not an ordinary person. They had the skill of a hunter, trained and dangerous. Alara waited, her body tense, her eyes locked on the figure. Then, without warning, she moved. Quick, silent, and impossible to follow, she darted across the street, dragging Armin with her. The figure reacted instantly, sprinting after them with a speed that made Armin's lungs burn. They ran through narrow alleys, over fallen crates, and under broken scaffolding. Each turn brought new danger. Loose boards, dripping water, and the ever-present sense of being watched. Armin's heart raced, but he couldn't stop. Not now. Not while she depended on him. Finally, they reached an abandoned courtyard. The moonlight reflected off a small fountain, broken and filled with stagnant water. Alara pulled him behind a stack of crates, crouching low. "They won't give up," she said, her voice quiet but tense. "Not easily. But they will make a mistake eventually." Armin's chest heaved. How do you know this?" Alara's eyes softened briefly, showing a glimpse of the person behind the mystery. "Because I have survived them before. And I always will." Before Armin could ask another question, the sound of footsteps echoed from the other side of the courtyard. Shadows moved, flickering against the walls. He realized the hunters had split up, surrounding them from different angles. Alara's hand touched his arm. "We need to move again. Follow me exactly. One wrong step and we're finished." Armin nodded, fear tightening his chest. He followed her silently as she led him through a hidden door at the back of the courtyard. It opened into a narrow tunnel, damp and dark. The air smelled of mold and earth, but it was safe, at least for now. They moved quickly, but Armin noticed something strange. Small symbols were etched into the walls of the tunnel. Lines, curves, and marks he couldn't recognize. They glowed faintly in the moonlight, though he could not understand why. What are those?" he asked, pointing to the markings. Alara glanced at them, her expression serious. "Warnings. Markers left by my people. They guide us and warn us. Not everyone can see them." Armin felt a shiver run down his spine. He had thought he was simply helping a mysterious woman, but now it seemed he had stepped into something far older, far more complex than he could have imagined. They emerged into another street, wider and quieter. The city's lights were dim, and the fog made everything look unreal. Armin struggled to keep pace, but he noticed Alara slowed slightly, letting him catch up. Suddenly, a sharp noise echoed from behind. A door slammed, metal clanging against metal. Armin spun around. Two figures emerged from the fog, moving quickly, silent as shadows. "Run!" Alara hissed, grabbing his hand. They sprinted down the street, adrenaline pumping through Armin's veins. He had never felt anything like this before. Fear, excitement, and something deeper he couldn't name. Every step carried the risk of discovery. Every breath could be their last. They ducked into another alley, and Armin realized how well Alara knew the city. She led him through twisting paths, up narrow staircases, and across rooftops, always staying one step ahead of the hunters. At one point, Armin stumbled, his foot catching on a loose board. He fell hard, scraping his hands and knees. Alara turned immediately, her eyes blazing with urgency. "Careful," she snapped, helping him up. "We can't afford mistakes." He nodded, swallowing the pain, his heart pounding in his ears. I'm okay," he said, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. They continued, finally reaching a high wall with a rusted ladder leading to the rooftops. Alara scaled it effortlessly, motioning for him to follow. He climbed, muscles burning, but determination driving him. Once on the rooftops, the city spread below them like a dark, endless maze. Lights flickered here and there, but for the most part, the streets were empty, silent. Armin realized how vulnerable they were. High above the ground, with nowhere to hide, yet safer than the alleys below. Alara paused, crouching low. She glanced down the street below, and then at Armin. "We have a few minutes," she said. "They will regroup. But this is temporary. We cannot stay here long." Armin nodded, trying to catch his breath. Where do we go next?" Alara's eyes scanned the horizon. "There is a safe place. Not far, but difficult to reach. We must move before they find another way to track us." As they prepared to descend, Armin noticed her gaze linger on something in the distance, an old clock tower, half destroyed and leaning, its face cracked. She hesitated for a moment, then shook her head, as if dismissing it. "What is it?" he asked. "Nothing," she said, though her voice held a note of worry. "Just memories. Shadows from the past." They moved quickly, dropping from rooftop to rooftop, until they reached the edge of the city. Here, the streets were narrower, less traveled. The fog was thicker, and the silence heavier. Armin realized they were leaving behind the world he knew, stepping into a place that seemed almost forgotten by time. Finally, they reached a small, hidden courtyard surrounded by high walls. Alara led him to a narrow door, almost invisible in the shadows. She checked around carefully before opening it, and they slipped inside. Inside was a small room, empty except for a few old crates. The air smelled of wood and dust. Armin sank to the floor, exhausted, his heart still racing. Alara pressed a hand to her forehead, closing her eyes. "We are safe for now," she said quietly. "But this is only the beginning. They will not stop. And you will be part of this from now on." Armin nodded, still trying to catch his breath. I understand. But I need to know why me. Why did you trust me?" Alara looked at him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of pain and something else he could not name. "Because you helped me without knowing the danger. Most people would have run. Most people would have left me. You did not. That is rare." Armin felt a warmth in his chest, though he did not fully understand it. In the midst of fear, danger, and confusion, he felt needed. Hours passed in silence. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the events unfolding in the hidden courtyard. Inside, two lives were bound together by danger, mystery, and secrets that would change everything. Alara finally spoke again. "Tomorrow I will show you more. You will begin to understand. But tonight rest. You will need all your strength. The hunters will not give up easily, and we must be ready." Armin nodded, exhaustion pulling him into a restless sleep. He had no idea what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing for certain. His life had changed forever. And somewhere, in the shadows of the city, the hunters waited. Silent, patient, relentless. The chase was only beginning. The first light of dawn filtered through the cracks in the warehouse roof, casting long shadows across the dusty floor. Armin woke with a start, muscles sore, heart still racing from the previous night's chase. He looked at Alara. She was already awake, sitting against the wall, her eyes fixed on some point beyond the room, lost in thought. "You're up early," Armin said, his voice hoarse. Alara did not respond immediately. She glanced at him, her gaze sharp and unreadable. "We don't have time to sleep. They will come again. And when they do, we cannot be unprepared." Armin nodded, still trying to shake off the exhaustion. "I need to understand everything. Why are they after you? What is this world you keep talking about?" Alara's lips pressed together in a thin line. For a moment, she seemed hesitant, as if deciding how much to reveal. Then finally she spoke. Very well. You deserve the truth, at least part of it. Armin's stomach twisted with anticipation. He had been waiting for this moment since he had helped her the night before. My life was never ordinary, she began. I was born into a world that exists alongside yours, hidden from view. A world of power, secrets, and rules you cannot imagine. I was trained from a young age to protect those secrets, to survive, to fight when necessary. Armin blinked. Trained? A fight? What kind of world is this? Alara's eyes darkened. A world of shadows, Armin. People like me, guardians, spies, watchers, we live in plain sight, but we shape events behind the scenes. Governments, corporations, wars, we influence them all.
And I
have knowledge that some would kill to possess. Armin felt a chill. You mean you're a spy? Alara shook her head. Not a spy. Something more. Something older. I was entrusted with information, secrets from the highest levels, things that could change nations, lives, even entire populations. And now, someone wants those secrets gone. Permanently. Armin swallowed hard. And the people chasing you, they're trying to kill you? Yes, she said simply. And they will not stop until they succeed. That is why I fled, and why I came to you. You helped me when I needed it most. You became part of this by default. The weight of her words sank into Armin's chest. He had imagined danger before, but never like this. This was life and death on a scale he had never known. Yet, strangely, he did not feel entirely afraid. He felt compelled, drawn into her world, whether he liked it or not. Alara stood and moved toward a small wooden crate in the corner of the room. She lifted the lid and revealed a set of objects, a map, a small dagger, and a worn leather journal. This, she said, pointing to the journal, contains my life, my missions, my knowledge, my failures, and the truth about those who hunt me. I cannot take you fully into this world without you understanding what is at stake. Armin approached cautiously, his eyes scanning the journal. The leather was cracked, pages worn with age. It smelled faintly of smoke and ink. He could see handwritten notes, diagrams, even names of people he had never heard of. Can I read it? He asked. Alara hesitated, then nodded. Yes. But understand this knowledge comes with responsibility. Once you know, you cannot unknow. And mistakes are costly. Lives will be lost. Armin nodded, his hands trembling slightly. He opened the journal, flipping through the pages. What he saw shocked him. Maps of cities he recognized, marked with symbols. Notes about people he knew nothing about. Descriptions of events that seemed impossible, yet somehow plausible. Who are these people? He asked, pointing to a page filled with names. Enemies, Alara said simply. And some were once allies. Trust is rare in my world, Armin. Loyalty even rarer. And betrayal inevitable. A sudden noise outside made them both freeze. The faint scrape of metal against stone. Someone was near. Armin's heart pounded. He glanced at Alara, who moved quickly, grabbing his arm. They're close, she whispered. We must leave, now. They slipped through a hidden door behind the crates, moving into a narrow, twisting passage. The air was cool, damp, filled with the scent of earth. Armin noticed more symbols etched into the walls, like the ones they had seen in the alleys the night before. They glowed faintly, guiding their path. These markings, what are they? He asked. Protection, Alara said. They guide those who belong here and warn us of danger. Only someone trained can see them clearly. You are beginning to. Armin frowned. I've what? You notice things you didn't before, she explained. You're learning whether you realize it or not. My world is seeping into yours. And soon there will be no turning back. The passage opened into a larger chamber, hidden beneath the city. Torches lined the walls, casting a golden glow. Old maps, books, and artifacts were scattered everywhere. Armin's eyes widened. This is incredible, he whispered. I had no idea such a place existed beneath the city. Torches line the walls, casting a golden glow. Old maps, books, and artifacts were scattered everywhere. Armin's eyes widened. "This is incredible," he whispered. "I had no idea such a place existed beneath the city." Alara nodded. "Few do, and fewer survive it. This is where I prepare, plan, and hide. This is where I became who I am." Armin stepped forward, examining the maps. Lines connected different points, cities, buildings, and even individual people. He realized these were not ordinary notes. These were strategies, movements, plans, lives carefully tracked and manipulated. "You control all this?" he asked, awe mixing with fear. "I influence," Alara corrected. "Control is an illusion. Power is fleeting. But knowledge is eternal. And I have it. That is why they want me dead." A sudden sound interrupted their moment, metal clanging from above. Footsteps. Someone had found the entrance to the chamber. Armin's heart jumped. "Get down," Alara hissed. They ducked behind a stack of crates as a shadow appeared in the doorway. A figure stepped in, hooded, silent. Armin recognized the same presence from the previous night, the hunters. They moved with uncanny precision, scanning the chamber with cold, deliberate eyes. Alara's hand brushed against his arm. "Stay calm. Watch. Learn. They are skilled, but not infallible." The hunter paused, sensing something. Armin's mind raced. Every instinct screamed to run, yet Alara's presence kept him grounded. He realized she was not just fighting for herself, she was showing him how to survive. The figure finally moved on, leaving the chamber. Armin exhaled, his body trembling. "That was close," he said, his voice barely audible. Alara nodded, her expression grave. "Too close. They will not stop. And now you know enough to be part of this. You cannot turn back, Armin. Once you are in, there is no leaving." He swallowed hard, understanding the truth. His ordinary life was gone. There would be no return to safety, no simple days. He was bound to her world, to danger, to secrets that could destroy him, or others, if mishandled. Alara studied him, her eyes softening for the first time. "You have the courage to face this, I believe. But courage alone is not enough. You will need trust and skill, both of which take time to learn." Armin nodded. I want to help. I want to understand. Whatever it takes." She smiled faintly, almost sadly. "Very well. Then you begin today. First lesson: survival is not just physical. It is knowing whom to trust, when to move, and when to wait. We will start with observation." For hours, she guided him through the chamber, showing him symbols, strategies, and traps. She taught him to read the signs of danger, to move silently, and to notice things he had never seen before. Armin was clumsy at first, but he began to understand the rhythm of her world, the way shadows moved, the way silence could save a life. By nightfall, he was exhausted but aware of how much he had learned. He looked at Alara, who was seated calmly, her eyes scanning the chamber with the precision of a predator. "You're ready for more," she said. "Tomorrow, we will step out into the city. You will see firsthand what I mean by shadows in your world." Armin nodded, a mixture of fear and excitement in his chest. He realized his life had changed forever. He was no longer an ordinary man. He was part of something larger, something dangerous, something that could consume him if he failed. And yet he could not turn away, because he had glimpsed the truth behind the shadows. And once seen, it could never be unseen. The night had settled over the city like a heavy curtain. Fog clung to the streets, curling around street lamps and alleyways. Armin and Alara moved cautiously, slipping through the shadows as if the darkness itself were their ally. "You must understand," Alara said quietly, her voice barely audible above the soft drizzle. "Our world is not black and white. Allies can betray, and enemies can help. Trust is always conditional." Armin's brow furrowed. "Then how do we know who to trust? Anyone could be a hunter waiting in disguise." Alara's lips pressed into a thin line. "Exactly. And that is why we move carefully. There are people who can help us, but only if we prove ourselves first. They approached a nondescript building tucked behind a row of warehouses. The door was old, chipped, and slightly ajar. Alara pressed a finger to her lips, signaling him to stay quiet. She pushed the door open slowly, revealing a dimly lit interior. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of smoke and something metallic. Figures moved in the shadows, but when Alara stepped forward, the room fell silent. "Leona," she called softly. A woman emerged from the shadows, her posture commanding, her gaze sharp. She looked almost like a predator, her eyes scanning Armin with suspicion before settling on Alara. "You're late," Leona said, her voice calm but edged with steel. "And who is this?" "This is Armin," Alara said. "He helped me last night. He's involved now." Leona's eyes narrowed. "Involved? Do you understand what that means?" Armin swallowed hard. I want to help. I want to understand." Alara nodded. "He has potential, but he must prove himself." Leona studied him for a long moment, then stepped closer. "Potential is useless without skill. He will need training, and he will need to make choices that may challenge his morality." Armin's stomach tightened. I'm ready." Leona's gaze softened slightly, but her expression remained guarded. "We'll see. But first, we must deal with the hunters. They are closing in faster than we expected." Alara moved to a table covered in maps and papers. "They've been following me for weeks. Someone has been tipping them off. We need to find out who before it's too late." Armin glanced at the maps. Lines connected cities, alleys, and buildings. Symbols marked certain locations. He noticed some of the marks matched the glowing symbols in the alleys and tunnels they had passed through. "What are these symbols?" he asked. Leona glanced at him. "Codes. Warnings. Traps. Anyone trained in our ways can read them, and they lead us to safety or danger." Armin felt a chill. "And you trust me to understand them?" Alara smiled faintly. "You're learning. Faster than I expected." Suddenly, the sound of breaking glass echoed from the street outside. All three froze. Armin's heart raced. "They've found us," Leona said softly. Alara's eyes narrowed. "Get ready. We have no choice but to fight or escape." They moved quickly, Armin following her lead as they slipped through a back door into a narrow alley. Shadows moved in the fog, hunters closing in. Armin could see them now, silent, precise, every movement calculated. Alara whispered, "Split up. Confuse them. Meet at the safe point." Armin hesitated. "Split up? Alone?" "Yes," she said. "Trust your instincts. You may not survive if you doubt yourself." He swallowed, his pulse pounding. "Okay, I trust you." They darted into different alleys. Armin ran, using the lessons Alara had taught him, watching shadows, listening to footsteps, moving silently. He stumbled once, but caught himself, his senses sharpened by fear. He turned a corner and almost collided with a man leaning against a wall. The man's hood shadowed his face, but his stance was relaxed, almost casual. Armin froze. "You're far from home," the man said, his voice smooth, dangerous. I'm just passing," Armin said, trying to sound confident. The man laughed softly, a sound that sent shivers down Armin's spine. "No one passes here. Not by accident. Not anymore. Who are you with?" Armin's mind raced. He could lie, but the man would see through it. He took a deep breath. "I'm with Alara." The man's eyes narrowed. "Alara? You mean the one the hunters are after? Interesting. You've got guts, kid. Maybe you're useful after all." He stepped aside, gesturing for Armin to continue. "Go. But remember, one wrong move, and you'll regret it." Armin nodded, running quickly, his heart hammering. The city seemed alive with threats. Every shadow could conceal a hunter, every footstep could signal an ambush. He finally reached a small courtyard, a prearranged safe point. Alara and Leona were already there, waiting. "You made it," Alara said, her voice relieved. "Good. Now listen carefully. This is where alliances matter. You need allies to survive. But beware, not all allies are what they seem. Armin glanced between the two women. Allies? You mean people I can trust? Leona shook her head. Maybe. Maybe not. Some may help, but only for their own benefit. Others may betray you at the first opportunity. The trick is knowing which is which, and that takes time, observation, and instinct. Alara added, and now you are part of this game. Every choice matters. Every action has consequences. One wrong step, and not just your life, but mine and many others could be lost. Armin's mind spun. He had never imagined a world like this, a game of shadows where trust was fragile and danger lurked everywhere. Yet, strangely, he felt alive. The fear was there, yes, but so was a thrill he had never known. They spent the next hours preparing. Maps were studied, escape routes memorized, and strategies discussed. Armin listened, absorbed, and tried to understand the complexity of this hidden world. Alara, he said finally, why are you letting me in? Why teach me this? She looked at him, her eyes piercing. Because you chose to help me when no one else would. You showed courage. And courage sometimes makes a difference. But it's not enough. You must also be smart, careful, and willing to face what others cannot. Armin nodded, determination hardening inside him. I'll do whatever it takes. I want to survive. I want to help you. Leona studied him silently, then nodded slightly. We'll see. Survival is more than desire. It's skill, wit, and nerve. Tomorrow, you will begin your first test. And the hunters, they will not wait. As dawn approached, the safe point grew quiet. Armin sat against the wall, exhausted but alert. He realized he was no longer the same man who had walked through the rainy streets the night before. He was part of something larger, something dangerous, something that could consume him if he failed. Yet, for the first time, he felt a strange sense of belonging. For all the fear, the danger, and the unknown, he had allies, fragile, uncertain allies, but allies nonetheless. Outside, the city seemed peaceful, unaware of the webs of danger and intrigue unfolding in its shadows. But Armin knew it was only the calm before the storm. Because tomorrow, the hunters would strike again, and the game of shadows would continue. The fog hung low over the city, curling around rooftops and street lamps like a living thing. Inside the hidden chamber, Armin sat cross-legged on the cold floor, trying to steady his breathing. His hands were still trembling from the night's events, the chase, the encounters, the constant threat of hunters lurking in the shadows. Alara moved in front of him, her expression unreadable. She had a calm, almost predatory grace that made every word she spoke feel heavier than it should. Armin, she said quietly, tonight, you will finally understand. You will see the truth behind who I am and why the hunters are after me. And once you know, there is no going back. Armin's heart pounded. He had been ready for answers, but hearing her say it so directly made his stomach tighten. I'm ready, he whispered. Alara nodded and gestured for him to follow. They stepped into a long hallway carved into the stone beneath the city. The walls were etched with strange symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light, pulsing like the heartbeat of the place itself. Armin could feel a hum of energy in the air, a force that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. These symbols, Armin began. What are they? They are warnings, protections, and memories, Alara explained. They are part of the world I come from. They guide us, protect us, and sometimes they reveal secrets to those who are ready to see. They reached a heavy iron door at the end of the hallway. Alara touched a symbol carved into the surface. The symbol glowed brightly, and the door creaked open slowly, revealing a chamber filled with light. Armin blinked. The room was enormous, filled with artifacts, weapons, and scrolls. At the center was a pedestal, and on it a crystal orb glowing with an inner fire. This, Alara said softly, is the Eye of Ithra. It is the source of knowledge and power in my world. And I am its guardian. Armin stared, unable to speak. The orb pulsed with energy, casting shadows across the room. He could feel it calling to him, whispering secrets he couldn't understand. "You're the guardian?" he finally asked. Alara nodded.
Yes.
"I protect knowledge that could destroy civilizations if misused. I have been trained since childhood, and I have fought those who sought it for their own gain. But now, someone close to me has betrayed that trust." Armin's stomach turned. Betrayed?
Who?
Alara's eyes darkened. "Someone I considered an ally. Someone I trusted with my life. They sold information to the hunters. And now, the hunters will stop at nothing to take me and the eye." Armin swallowed hard. "And what does that mean for me?" "It means you're involved," she said simply. "By helping me, you are part of this world. And by being here, you will see things no ordinary person should see. Choices will be demanded of you. Decisions that could cost lives. Yours, mine, or theirs." Armin felt a wave of fear, but beneath it, a strange excitement. He had been drawn into something beyond ordinary life, and he couldn't deny the pull. I'm ready," he said, though his voice trembled. Alara studied him carefully. "Good. Then you must learn the first lesson of this world. The truth is rarely what it seems. Everyone has motives, and nothing is accidental. The hunters are skilled, but even they make mistakes. We will use that." She moved to the pedestal, placing her hand on the orb. The light pulsed brighter, illuminating the chamber. Armin stepped closer, drawn by the energy, and saw images flicker inside the orb. Cities burning, shadows moving through alleys, people whispering secrets. "They've already infiltrated parts of our world," Alara said. "They are everywhere. And the person who betrayed me, they are still close. We must find them before the hunters do." Armin felt his head spin. How can we find them?" Alara turned to him, her expression intense. "You watch, you learn, you trust no one blindly. And you must understand sometimes the person you least suspect is the one who will strike." Hours passed as she taught him. She showed him how to read the symbols, how to detect lies, and how to sense danger before it arrived. Armin struggled at first, but slowly, he began to understand. The world Alara inhabited was layered, hidden, and alive. Every movement, every word, every glance had meaning. Finally, she handed him a dagger, small, sharp, and balanced perfectly for
quick action.
"This is not just a weapon," she said. "It is a tool for survival. Use it wisely. Trust your instincts." Armin nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. The dagger felt like an extension of himself, a symbol that he could no longer remain passive. "Tonight," Alara continued, "we strike back. The hunters will make their move, and we will be ready. But you must understand, this is not a fight to the death. It is a test. One wrong step and we fail." Armin's pulse quickened. I can do this. I have to." Alara's eyes softened slightly. "I know you can, but fear will try to control you. Trust in your instincts and trust in me." As night fell, they prepared for the confrontation. Alara led him through secret tunnels beneath the city, their path illuminated only by the glowing symbols on the walls. Every step felt heavy with tension. Armin's mind raced with possibilities: who would betray them, how the hunters would attack, and whether they would survive the night. Finally, they emerged onto a rooftop overlooking the city square. The hunters were already there, moving in precise formations, shadows blending into the fog. Alara signaled for Armin to stay low, then she leaped forward, landing silently among the hunters. Armin watched, heart pounding, as she moved with the skill of someone trained for decades. She disarmed one hunter, used another as a shield, and disappeared into the shadows, leaving Armin both terrified and awed. Suddenly, a figure stepped into view, tall, hooded, familiar. Armin's breath caught. It was someone he had trusted, someone from the safe point. The realization hit him like a blade. Alara had been right. Betrayal came from the closest circle. The figure raised a hand, signaling the hunters to advance. Armin felt his pulse spike. He had never faced betrayal like this before. He felt cornered, but something inside him stirred, a newfound resolve. He gripped the dagger, his hands steadying. He knew he had to act. Not just for himself, not just for Alara, but for the fragile alliance that still held their lives together. Alara reappeared, moving like a shadow, striking quickly and silently. She grabbed Armin's arm. "Now," she hissed. Together, they moved, silent and deadly. Every strike, every movement was precise, a dance of survival and strategy. Armin realized something important. This world demanded more than courage. It demanded awareness, speed, and trust in instincts that went beyond logic. The betrayal had revealed their vulnerability, but it also revealed their strength. Alara and Armin fought side by side, two shadows in the night, weaving between danger and opportunity. Finally, after what felt like hours, the hunters retreated, their formation broken, the betrayer fleeing into the fog. Armin sank to the rooftop, exhausted but alive. Alara stood beside him, her eyes fierce, her breathing steady. "You survived," she said softly. "And now you know the truth. The world you knew, it no longer exists for you. You are part of this. And from now on, your choices will matter." Armin nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He had crossed a threshold. There was no going back. He had seen the truth, faced betrayal, and survived the hunter's attack. And he knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. Alara turned her gaze to the city below. "The hunters will regroup. The betrayer will return. And we will be ready. But you, Armin, you must continue to grow. The next test will come soon. And it will demand everything you have." Armin swallowed hard, gripping the dagger tightly. He was no longer an ordinary man. He was a part of a hidden world filled with danger, secrets, and impossible choices. And he was ready, or at least he hoped he was. The night stretched on, silent and heavy, as the city slept. Shadows moved unseen, and in those shadows, the game continued. Armin and Alara looked at each other, two allies bound by trust, danger, and the knowledge that nothing would ever be the same. The truth had unfolded. And the next chapter of their fight was only beginning. The night was darker than usual, the fog heavier, pressing down on the city like a living weight. Every street, every rooftop, every alleyway seemed to hide a threat. Armin and Alara moved with careful precision, silent as shadows, hearts pounding. They had spent days preparing, tracking the betrayer and anticipating the hunter's moves. Tonight, it would all come to a head. Alara paused at the edge of a ruined plaza. The city sprawled out beneath them. "This is it," she said quietly. "The hunters have gathered in the square. The betrayer is with them. And they're waiting for a mistake. One misstep and we're finished." Armin swallowed hard. He gripped the dagger tightly, the weight of the past nights pressing on him. "And if we fail?" he asked. Alara's eyes were cold, unwavering. "We cannot fail. Not tonight. Too much is at stake." The plaza below was alive with movement. Shadows danced across the stone, hunters moving in precise formations. The betrayer's hooded figure was at the center, directing them. Armin could see the glint of metal, the flash of weapons, the tension in every posture. "This is not just a fight," Alara whispered. "This is a gamble. Every choice we make will determine who survives." They descended from the rooftop, using hidden paths and shadows to approach the square unseen. Armin's pulse raced. Every step was calculated, every breath measured. He had never felt so alive, so terrified, so aware. Alara paused, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Remember everything. Watch, listen, move. Trust your instincts and trust me." Armin nodded. He had learned much, how to read the symbols, how to anticipate movements, how to act silently. But nothing could fully prepare him for the chaos that awaited. They emerged into a narrow alley, overlooking the hunters. Alara signaled him to stay low, then moved forward silently, blending into the shadows. She struck first, a blur of movement that disarmed one hunter and incapacitated another. Armin followed, heart pounding, moving with a focus he had never known. The betrayer noticed them almost immediately. "They've come," he shouted, his voice carrying across the plaza. Hunters scattered, converging on Armin and Alara. The fight exploded into motion. Blades flashed, shadows collided, and the night was filled with the sounds of struggle and determination. Armin moved quickly, using every skill Alara had taught him. He blocked, dodged, and struck, his fear transforming into action. Each movement required focus, instinct, and trust in his partner. Alara moved with lethal precision, guiding him when needed, striking when the moment demanded. The betrayer advanced, confronting them directly. Armin's heart pounded as he faced the figure who had caused so much chaos. The betrayer raised a blade, eyes glinting in the dim light. "You're too late," the betrayer hissed. "The hunters will succeed, and the eye will be ours." Alara stepped forward, her dagger flashing in the faint light. Not tonight. Not ever. The fight became a deadly dance. Hunters pressed in from all sides, shadows moving with intent to kill. Armin realized the full weight of what Alara had warned him about. Trust, skill, and instinct were all that separated life from death. He noticed a pattern in the hunters' movements, the slight delay in their attacks, the direction of their focus. Using this knowledge, he acted decisively, intercepting a hunter who was moving to flank Alara. The man fell, disarmed but alive, buying precious seconds. Alara moved past him, confronting the betrayer. Betrayer directly. "You will not take the eye," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. The betrayer lunged, and their blades clashed. Sparks flew as steel met steel, each strike precise and deadly. Armin watched, heart racing, as Alara moved like a shadow, fast, controlled, and almost untouchable. He realized then that the hunters, despite their skill, were predictable. Their loyalty to the betrayer was their weakness. Armin seized the opportunity, striking decisively at the betrayer's side, forcing him backward. The betrayer stumbled, surprise flashing in his eyes. Alara pressed the advantage, her movements fluid and lethal. With one final strike, she disarmed him completely, sending the betrayer sprawling to the ground. The hunters hesitated, confusion rippling through their ranks. Armin and Alara pressed forward, pushing them back, forcing them to retreat into the shadows. The plaza fell silent, the fog swallowing the remaining threats. Alara turned to Armin, her expression a mixture of pride and exhaustion. "You did well," she said quietly. "You trusted your instincts. You fought. And you survived." Armin sank to the ground, panting, adrenaline coursing through him. We did it?" Alara nodded. "For now. The betrayer is gone. The hunters scattered. But this is only a temporary victory. The world you knew, it no longer exists. And neither does the one you thought was safe." Armin's mind raced. He had survived danger, betrayal, and death. He had seen Alara's world, the hidden networks, the shadows, the power. And he realized he had changed forever. Alara placed a hand on his shoulder. "There is one final truth you must understand, Armin. The eye, the knowledge it holds, it is not just power. It is responsibility. And now you are part of that responsibility. You cannot ignore it. You cannot walk away." Armin nodded slowly, understanding the weight of her words. He had been pulled into something far beyond himself, and he had no choice but to face it fully. "Are you ready?" Alara asked, her eyes searching his. He took a deep breath, gripping the dagger tightly. "I am." She led him to the pedestal where the eye of Ithra glowed, its light pulsing with unseen energy. Armin approached, feeling its power ripple through him. He realized that everything, the danger, the betrayal, the battles, had prepared him for this moment. Together, they stood before the eye. Armin placed a hand on it, feeling knowledge, power, and responsibility flood his senses. He saw glimpses of past events, hidden truths, and future possibilities. The weight was immense, almost suffocating, but he held on. Alara's voice was calm, steady. "This is the truth. Knowledge is both a weapon and a shield. It can destroy or protect. And now you must choose how to use it." Armin nodded, understanding that the choice was no longer about survival alone. It was about responsibility, trust, and the world beyond the shadows. The night began to lift, the first rays of dawn piercing the fog. The hunters had retreated, the betrayer defeated. But the city, the shadows, and the secrets remained. Alara turned to him, a faint smile on her lips. You have survived the gambit. And now, the real journey begins. Armin felt a strange mix of fear, awe, and purpose. He had crossed the threshold into a hidden world, faced betrayal and danger, and emerged alive. And he knew that life, as he had once known it, was gone forever. Together, they stepped into the light of the new day, ready to face whatever challenges the hidden world would throw at them. Shadows would come again. Betrayal would come again. But for now, they had won. The final gambit had been played, and Armin had proven himself ready.